Okay, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to bring our meeting to order. This is the Monday, August 10th meeting, 2026 of the Village Council in the Village of Forest Park. We begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are able, please rise. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Maxim. Here. Commissioner Nero. Commissioner Mellon Rogovin.
Here.
Commissioner Vogt.
Here.
Mayor Hoskins.
Here. Okay. We're going to start by holding our public hearing concerning the TIF. This is our proposed Franklin Street, Brown Avenue Tax Increment Financing District. We're going to go ahead and convene this public hearing to consider approval of the redevelopment plan and the project for the Franklin Street, Brown Avenue redevelopment project area. Allocation financing for the Franklin Street, Brown Avenue TIF district. The Village Council will take no action tonight concerning this matter. Tonight, we will take public comment from all interested persons or affected taxing districts concerning the approval of the redevelopment plan and the project, and a confirmation of the boundaries and adoption of the tax increment financing for the TIF district. At this time, we're going to have a short presentation from the village's consulting company concerning statutory notices, conformance with the TIF Act, the Joint Review Board recommendation, and an overview of the proposed TIF area.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Greer, and I'm joined here tonight with my colleague, Brett Michelson. And we are with Ryan LLC, which is the TIF consultants that the village has decided to go with here. So we're going to go through the Franklin Street, Brown Avenue redevelopment project area TIF tonight. So just a quick agenda. We're going to go through TIF fundamentals and how those align with the village's strategic planning and objectives, the qualification factors, and the amended TIF redevelopment plan and project. I'm using the word amended just because one of the two parcels in this TIF was previously involved in a different TIF, and now we're combining those two together. And then we'll end with the process and next steps. So what is a TIF? A TIF is a tool that a village can use to reach its economic goals. It's just one step in the process to get to its final destination. So here we have two separate buckets. So the larger bucket here is the base revenues that is going to be going to all the taxing districts throughout the life of the TIF. And during the life of the TIF, there's going to be a smaller bucket collecting the increment growth during that time. So here's a visual of that. So at the time of the creation, the base property value will stay the same. And then all that extra value will go into the TIF area. So the TIF Act compliance, for the state of Illinois, the proposed new TIF designation complies with the legal provisions of the TIF Act, including but not limited to the redevelopment project area conforms to the village comprehensive plan. The proposed redevelopment project area is consistent with 1.5 acres and is continuous parcels all connected. And then the redevelopment project area meets more than the minimum number of TIF requirements for the creation of a conservation area. And then it also meets the but-for requirement, showing that this area needs a TIF to have some sort of redevelopment happening. So how this aligns with the village's project and plan objectives. So this is meant to incentivize private investors and developers to facilitate new development that is going to align more with the comprehensive plan. So creating more of a mixed use residential commercial area instead of the current industrial area that is currently there. And this will improve the functionality, the accessibility, and then overall fit the neighborhood characteristics better than what's currently there. So the area that we are talking about tonight is in the northeast portion of the village. bounded by Franklin Street to the south, the CTA and Metro rail tracks to the north, industrial properties to the east, and then residential condominiums to the west. This is 2.66 acres and 2 parcels, and there are 7 commercial and industrial uses currently on the site. So the qualification factors. So this plan that we're putting in place aligns with the village's comprehensive plan, which was last updated in 2014. The TIF designation is necessary to encourage private investment to facilitate coordinated redevelopment of underutilized and aging commercial and industrial properties within the RPA. The TIF designation is key to providing the financial framework for necessary funding public infrastructure improvements, including utilities, streets, sidewalks, parking, lighting, and stormwater management, as well as site preparation and demolition. Addressing redevelopment barriers created by obsolete buildings, deteriorating site conditions, inadequate utilities, and inefficient site configuration that hinders private investment. Supporting coordinated redevelopment that would not reasonably occur but for the availability of TIF assistance, and then implementing the goals and objectives of the Village Comprehensive Plan for revitalizing this area. So the Franklin Street Brown Avenue TIF District qualifies under the Illinois TIF Act by 100% of the structures being over the age of 35 years of age. And then 6 of the 13 qualifying factors for the conservation area are present. And for that, there has to be at least 3. So we're going to go through those now. So here is a list of all 13 qualifying factors. And then the ones here on the left side of the screen that are bolded and underlined are 6. So deterioration, obsolescence, excessive land coverage, inadequate utilities, lack of community planning, and a lag or decline in equalized assessed value. So the proposed TIF redevelopment plan, the proposed land uses, as I've stated, are going to be more of a mixed-use residential commercial type of use, moving away from the industrial use of the past. The proposed TIF budget is $16 million, and then the base equalized assessed value at the time of the TIF creation is $850,000 with the tax year of 2024, which is the most recent data available. And then for the projected EAV upon completion of the 23-year lifespan of the TIF is 1.5 to 2 million. And here we have a proposed budget. So land acquisition and assembly of relocation, demolition, site prep, and environmental cleanup. So moving away from the industrial land uses and into a more mixed use. And then public improvements such as roads, utilities, stormwater management. And we have a few more down here, but those are our 3 biggest ones. And one more time, this is the proposed TIF. And then for our process and next steps, so here we are having the public hearing. And then at the next board meeting in September, which is September 14th, is when we plan on the village talking about the adoption of this. So at this time, we're open for questions. If anyone has any questions at this time.
Were all statutorily required notices provided?
Yes.
Joint Review Board meet and make a recommendation on this TIF district?
The Joint Review Board did meet and they decided to pass this. They recommended, yes.
Commissioner Mellon, go ahead.
This is being proposed in an area where there is heavy train and rail traffic and has been heavy train and rail traffic for industrial use. So this has generated, at least for me, a number of residents who have come to me with questions about how, what's going in here and how will it impact current residents? And you talk about, you talk about mixed use, residential, commercial, and I know we may or may not know exactly what the plans are for development. Can you talk about, the heavy rail traffic was a big impact or has had a big impact on residents in the Brown communities there. Can you talk about how the changing nature of this area is in regards to rail, what we know about that?
Yeah, so we do know that since the site right now is industrial, there may be rail access due to this industrial site. And with the movement going more towards residential or mixed use, that may impact rail. I can't speak on like the rail companies on
Oh,
how they're going
yeah.
to be doing, or where they will be like storing rail cars. But the idea is that there would be a rail spur that would no longer be accessible to this site.
Okay, and so what do we know about the type of projects we might expect and how the land use might change?
Yeah, so like from the village's comprehensive plan, this area is due to change to become more of a residential mixed use. So moving away from the industrial piece, which would impact freight rail. And then that would make it so that it's more of a like an area where residents are going to be living, where the noise complaints for the rail traffic is going to be addressed. And it will probably better fit into like what is already existing within the neighborhood, which is mostly residential.
Okay, because that's a big question, and that's something that I know in the TIF process, in the TIF review process, there's a time and a place to address that, but I want to get it, start to raise that question because residents are concerned and aware of this and asking about it.
Yep.
The property, our understanding, is currently up for sale, so this is a tool that could be utilized to incentivize future redevelopment.
Yeah.
So we're not quite sure what the redevelopment, or Rachel, do you want to hop? But any approval of use of TIF funds is subject to village council approval.
Yep.
So just because the TIF is created doesn't mean funds are available.
Yep.
It's still up to your vote.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I've responded to that. I have provided that as a response. And it's wanted to make sure that we talk about all the environmental.
Yeah, I was gonna just wanted to mention too, like there's two parts to this. There's
Yeah.
the creation of the TIF and then the
Yes.
village's agreement to utilize TIF. That's one process. And then what actually goes there
Yes.
is going to be one, dependent on what the seller wants to entertain, but two, being that anything that's over a half an acre would have to go through the plan development process. And so that goes through the board of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so that will be separate from anything that's happening with the TIF. I mean, they'll hypothetically, they will coordinate with each other if the village so chooses to provide TIF assistance to a development. But the processes will be separate as far as what actually goes there and then whether or not the village chooses to support the development with TIF funds.
I get it. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, this is the time if you have any questions or comments about the TIF. Staff, anything further? Okay, we have at least one public comment that I think was emailed to us. Madam Clerk.
This is from Thomas Kovac. I have conducted research covering over a 60-year period on the transition from industrial commercial use to multifamily residential for an area bounded by Elgin Avenue to the east, Circle and Franklin to the north and south, heading westward to Brown Avenue, ending at Lathrop Avenue, the western Village of Forest Park Village line. The change has largely involved the development of low-rise apartment structures and townhouse homes. Such a pattern has strongly reflected our identity as a small-town place. It is very pleasant to walk these streets with their buildingscape in harmony. Tall, high-rise structures are in contradiction to the small-town identity and feel. Such low-rise housing had been very beneficial to greatly increasing real estate taxes paid. A quick comparison, the suburban lumber yard that is scheduled to close sits on a land site of about the same size as two abutting townhouse developments located on Brown Avenue. For year 2024, the lumber yard per county records paid about $88,000 in real estate taxes. My earlier research of the nearby townhouse developments for year 2017 showed that at that time, real estate taxes totaled well over $500,000. Current real estate taxes very likely now probably cost close to $700,000. One last point. Please explain why $8.5 million would be needed in public improvements for a townhouse development to replace the existing lumberyard. Thomas Kovac, Franklin Street homeowner and resident.
So like we said before, any TIF funds that are going to be approved will have to go to the village board for approval. So right now, all the budget is just, all of the budget here is just temporary, and these numbers are able to be like moved around, but this is just our proposed budget at this time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does anyone from the public care to comment on the TIF and the proposed redevelopment plan? Please identify yourself.
Hi, Dana Meliker, 101 Des Plaines, right in the left-hand corner,
Yep.
right there. Yeah, right on the corner there where it goes out to Franklin and Des
Okay.
Plaines, right there.
Mhm.
So you'd be fixing my sidewalk, hopefully, when you do that. Just questions on the definition of commercial, okay, here versus commercial for industrial. There have been a lot of rumors going around about what's might be going in there. Somebody had said, possibly a wholesale distribution site. I'm not sure whether that would qualify as commercial or industrial, but where that really goes down to is traffic considerations. And I wanted to know whether that was part of the TIF or, as you say, that would be part of the next step.
Yeah, that is not a part of the TIF. That would be a part of the next step.
Okay. And can you give a little more specific definition on the delineation between commercial and industrial for us?
So usually in like, in most like municipalities, like commercial would be something like a strip mall or an office center. So this is just going off of the comprehensive plan. So there is no set plan for what is going to go there.
Mhm.
I think that for the most part, the village is looking to have more of a residential mixed use, which mixed use would be first floor retail. So more of like something that you're going to be experiencing on like a local street and less of something that is going to be bringing in a lot of traffic.
Okay.
But none of that is decided upon right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to give the council a little status update. So 18 months ago, I was contacted by the broker. This is a fairly complicated transaction because the trust that owns the property, there are 13 siblings that are the beneficiaries of that trust. That property was originally a lumberyard started in the 1950s by their father. At this point, I'm sure most of you on the council and in this room don't recall the meat factory, Knipe Meat Factory, which held the corner of Lathrop and Brown. And they owned all that land. And so we had two meat packing factories next to one another. In 1999, Silver Moon came in, acquired the property, redeveloped it to what we call the Yellow Townhomes, which have been very successful. They've held value. So naturally, in discussions with the broker, staff has made it crystal clear the highest and best use, and frankly, the best cost per square foot for the trust is going to be in residential redevelopment. Sort of divorcing that part of town from its light industrial history has a lot of benefits. Obviously, never thought I'd be on record as saying I agree, at least in part, with something Tom Kovac said, but he's right. I mean, we'd be looking at a tax of about $7,000 a door on multifamily. 14% of that comes back to the village. 36% goes to the school district. The upside here is that we are going to divorce that site of truck traffic. There are only 3 deliveries a week, but those deliveries on that spur, which is the last active rail spur in Forest Park, those boxcars are 20 feet from the sleeping rooms of some of those townhomes. So, they've learned how to live with that. There is always a possibility on the table. We cannot prevent the seller from selling to another industrial user. But we've made it crystal clear, both Rachel and myself, the TIF is off the table if an industrial user, and as happened with SBC Waste over on 13th and Circle. When they acquired the property and they knew in advance of the purchase that, the compacted gravel, it was 3.5 acres of compacted gravel, they had to spend an additional $1.7 million in stormwater management, according to MWRD's standards, and they poured concrete over 3.5 acres. That was a lot of money. Okay, so it's a natural. Multifamily is what the broker is focusing on. She's well aware of the consequences of the family pulling the trigger and selling to a light industrial user. But there's no downside to multifamily there. It really does benefit the community. And we all know that the population's down 3.4% over the last 5 years. And, our buyer demographic has shifted markedly. So we've got the broker on our side. We've got this 13-member family has a 5-member board. We've got that board pretty much focusing on a transaction that does include this. I've shopped it with local developers. Now that the offering memorandum has been finalized and released, the broker is telling me there is a lot of interest in the property. I've even heard, I spoke with one developer who actually thought, it's 200 feet of street frontage on Franklin, is they would do multifamily holding the sidewalk, and they would use the back as a membership recreational facility, pickleball, platform tennis, those are just a couple of spitballed concepts. But this process is well underway, and now that the offering memorandum is out and available to the developing public, I expect this process to move very quickly. Their history here was 18 months ago when we found out that the property was going to be sold. We did a audit of the TIF pins, the property index numbers, and we determined that when we had shifted that TIF to cover more of Harlem Avenue, in fact, it goes from this location all the way up to the alley, the demising alley between Parky's and Chipotle, we found that one pin was not in the TIF. So this whole process is about porting that back in so that we have the carrot on the end of the stick in order to make this a more enticing opportunity. Now, I don't know where Mr. Kovac thinks there's $8 million worth of infrastructure improvements. I've never seen that. I don't think it's accurate. But that is a qualified TIF expense, professional services, infrastructure, and frankly, acquisition. So we need that carrot. We need that for competitive purposes, and having the property in whole in the TIF is an absolute priority.
Thank you, Director Glinke.
Any further questions? No? I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, that concludes the public hearing on the TIF. From here, we're going to adjourn the public hearing and then go into our regular meeting. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Nero. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Maxham. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Rogovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt, Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, so let's move into the regular meeting. Thank you. Okay, first up, approval of the minutes from the July 22nd special budget meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxham. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion. All right, there is no discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim,
Aye.
Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, next, Commissioners, we need to approve the minutes from the July 27th public hearing on the appropriations ordinance. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Maxim. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion. All right, there is no discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim,
Aye.
Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, Commissioners, next is to approve the minutes from the July 7th regular meeting of the council. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxim. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion. Okay, there's no discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt, Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, we're at public comment. Madam Clerk, have you received any public comment?
Yes, we have 2 speakers and 2 write-ins. 3 write-ins. The first speaker is Betty.
Good evening. My name is Betty Alzamora. I come tonight to you as your neighbor, as a volunteer advocate and facilitator with PASO and ICER. On July 30th, a known DHS vehicle illegally parked in an ADA accessible spot at Village Hall, and an ICE agent entered a restricted police area, after which a department employee moved the vehicle, falsely claiming it as their own. This was all captured on video by an independent documentarian exercising their First Amendment rights. I want to speak directly to what happened in the hearts of our neighbors that day. Across Forest Park in the near west suburbs, a fragile trust was shattered. For many of the immigrant families that I work with directly, it felt like a direct signal that this village is no longer a safe place. Now, you may feel that this perception is unfair, but I'm asking you to understand the very real daily fear that our neighbors are carrying right now. In that spirit, I'm asking you, Mayor, Chief Gross, each of you village commissioners, to meet with us swiftly to take 2 immediate and common sense steps. Number 1, we should designate ice-free zones in our municipal buildings. Village Hall and the police department must be safe havens where no person fears being turned over to ICE without a valid judicial warrant signed by a judge. And number 2, it's time to modernize Forest Park's 2017 welcoming resolution. That resolution was passed before the Illinois Trust Act became the law of the state. Our resolution needs an immediate update as being proposed by immigration expert lawyers. Years back, the billboard at our community center proudly read, "No human is illegal." As a queer woman of color, as an immigrant, I feel that truth in my bones. That spirit is still who we are. But declarations on a billboard only matter if we back them up when our neighbors are vulnerable. I'll be reaching out to each of you this week to schedule these conversations. I'm looking forward to working side by side with you to keep every resident and every visitor to the village of Forest Park safe. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your time and your leadership.
Thank you, Commissioner Alzamora.
Next is Jeff Benz Calvi.
Hi, my name is Jeff Binscalvi. I live at 1119 Circle in Forest Park with my wife, Amy. So according to a recent report from the Ohio Immigrant Alliance, 59 ICE agents so far have been convicted of physical or sexual abuse against women and children. And 2/3 of these crimes were against children. Is every ICE agent a predator? Obviously not, but ICE agents in general are a far cry from professional police forces, and local trusted police departments risk diluting their trust with their communities if they are perceived as being allied with ICE. I ask that our police department tread very carefully in dealing with ICE. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, the first write-in is from Naoto Hasegawa. My name is Naoto Hasegawa, and I am a resident and legal permanent resident of the United States at the 900 block of Circle. Since I will not be able to attend the Village Council meeting tonight due to work obligation, please allow me to share with you my comments for the Village Council. While I do not condone any type of harassment by anyone, I take no comfort in knowing that the village basically gave this ICE agent the VIP treatment by helping them leave the premises. Based on the review of the video, I feel that an intervention by an officer of the law to mitigate the tension should have been enough. Seeing a village official moving the vehicle for the officer and not accurately conveying the intent makes me feel extremely uneasy about walking into Village Hall to take care of things for me and my family. What now goes to my mind is if a village official would call ICE based on their suspicion, my accent, or my foreign appearance, then use an excuse to delay my leaving the Village Hall till ICE agent can come over to interrogate me to ensure I am legal to be in the United States. Although I do carry my Illinois driver's license, permanent resident card issued by USCIS, a marriage license that proves my marriage to a U.S. citizen spouse at all times, we all know that ICE does not seem to value these as they are detaining U.S. citizens based on their hunch in recent days. Trust is hard to build, yet easy to break. I feel this incident sadly diminished my trust in the village of Forest Park, and it will take some time for me to be able to trust the public officials again. Sincerely, Naoto Hasegawa. Okay, the second one. Dear Mayor Hoskins and Commissioners, I am writing to express my disappointment and concern after seeing the video of our police department personnel aiding an ICE agent. By allowing the ICE agent access to Village Hall's non-public areas, moving his car, and helping him leave without being followed, the police personnel broke the Illinois Trust Act and the spirit of our own village welcoming resolution. As the wife of an immigrant, I have seen firsthand what these ICE raids have done to shake my partner's sense of safety and security in our community. After seeing what happened at Village Hall last month, and after seeing Lieutenant Dan Miller pull a gun on an innocent woman while he was off duty in another community, I believe the village and the police have work to do in rebuilding trust with our community. Kimberly Adami Hasegawa. And the last one. Good evening. I feel fortunate to be a part of this beautiful community. We are diverse economically, culturally, racially, spiritually, by gender identity, ability, and so much more. My neighbors welcomed my wife and I to the block, and we continue to welcome new neighbors. When neighbors need help, we offer to help, and we know that we can ask for help too. We also know that everyone comes with different resources. Not everyone can help in the same way or to the same extent, but we do what we can when we can. I don't want to see agents of cruelty entering our public spaces. I don't want to see our public servants hiding agents of cruelty in our public spaces. Allowing agents of cruelty into our public spaces causes fear, discomfort, and distrust in our public institutions and the entire community. I would like to see the Village of Forest Park reflect the same welcoming nature in its municipal spaces that we, the residents of Forest Park, embody every day. Thank you for your time, Steve Castile.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, so that concludes our public comment section for this evening. Thank you for your comments. Commissioners, there are no formal communications in front of the council this evening. There are no department reports. So we're at bills by resolution. Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Forest Park, Cook County, Illinois, that we dispense with the reading of the individual bills inasmuch as each department head has approved and signed bills in the following aggregate amount for their respective departments. Refunds and allocations, $300. Public Affairs, $145,109.82. Police Department, $5,545.35. Accounts and Finance, Clerk's Office, $205,497.75. Accounts and Finance Fire Department, $2,386.53. Department of Health and Safety, $6,235.54. Public Property, $29,450.64. Motor fuel tax, $3,355.12. Seizure, $1,696.95. Police DUI, $500. Federal Customs, $3,191.90. TIF, $4,554.34. VIP, $50,518.99. Water Department, $18,227.33 for a total of $476,570.26.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the resolution on the bills?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxam. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim,
Aye.
Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
This is Resolution R 75-26.
Okay, Commissioners, there's no unfinished business in front of the council this evening, so we're at new business. And our first item is going to be a discussion, and we're going to welcome our village planner, Pete Iusi.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. I asked Pete to come today to just give you an update on where we were with next steps for the Altenheim property. My goal is to be able to bring this topic back on a monthly basis, even if there is no update to report to you, but to keep the conversation going. And so, if there are any questions that you have, I can get them answered as opposed to waiting until something does take place and having people reach out and contact me. So this is going to be the beginning of that. So Pete's going to talk a little bit about what we've been talking about, what we've been working on, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So yeah, Rachel and I and staff have been meeting just to kind of come up with a game plan and to keep the ball moving on the Altenheim property. With the ultimate goal of, as Steve mentioned earlier when he was talking about the TIF, how they have just recently gone out with their marketing to developers, that that's kind of the endpoint where we're trying to get to. But there are a couple of significant hurdles that we need to overcome before we can get anywhere near the point of actually going out to an RFP or an RFQ. And we can talk about that in a second if you want as well. But primarily the major stumbling block at this point, as most of you are probably aware, when the village acquired that property, there are covenants put on that property which limit what is allowed to be put on the property. So basically, their covenant restricts development to R1, I believe R1 and R2. So basically, low-density residential is the covenant on that property. So I know there have been in the past, before I've been around, there have been at least preliminary discussions with the Altenheim, and it sounds like they are at least open to having discussions about taking a look at those covenants and see if we can open that up to some other land uses or some higher density. But that, and Rachel has been trying to, we're trying to schedule a meeting with them to discuss that with them. I know they have previously talked about potentially wanting to buy back a sliver of property as a potential buffer if the eventual plan goes higher density. And so those are kind of the things that we have to work out. But right now, we're kind of tied to low density residential at this point. So short of, that's always an option. If you want to just move ahead under the existing covenants, that's always an option. If we want to look at higher and better uses for the property, we really need to, that's the first and major hurdle we have to overcome, is we have to come to some kind of an agreement with that property owner to overcome those covenants. Hopefully, if that can get accomplished, there are some smaller issues with the property as far as we've been looking at, connecting the bike path. And I know there's certain area on the site that the village wants to retain for water detention. So that's the stuff we can work out. But really, the big question is we have to come to some kind of an arrangement with the Altenheim to get past those covenants. So hopefully we'll get a meeting scheduled with them soon and get that process started. The other thing is the board should be thinking about, ultimately, what do we want to see on that property? We really don't want to get too far into an RFP or an RFQ process without some type of a consensus on what we're looking for on that property. So that would be a generally good idea I probably can't get everyone on exactly the same page, and we don't need to know exactly what's going to go there, but we'll ultimately have to come up with some general parameters on what we're looking for before we go out to developers. I know Steve and Rachel wanted me to touch a little bit on, there's been a lot of discussion on, once we get past those hurdles, and ultimately, we need to know exactly the piece of property that we're talking about and exactly the type of uses. Once we get that squared away, then we can go out to start the RFP or the RFQ process. I know there's been a lot of discussion on should it be RFP process or should it be an RFQ process. So maybe I'll just talk a little bit about kind of the distinction between those two. I personally, and granted, take this with a grain of salt, I am a consultant, but from a consultant's perspective, from the people who would be responding to a potential RFP or an RFQ, an RFQ is generally the easier lift for the developer to respond to as opposed to the RFP. Essentially, the difference would be if you go out for the RFP, you're basically asking for the developer to provide you with their preferred plan for the site. So that would be a situation like, I know when we were discussing this earlier, I threw out the example of, I guess evidently the Bears might be moving. At some point, they'll be looking for a new stadium. So they would go out to an RFP. People would come in with their pretty plans for the new stadium. That would be more of an RFP process where the developer would actually work out an actual concept plan for that site. So the benefit of that type of a process is you'd get to see a bunch of different plans that you could look at, and you might get some ideas You might see some creative things that you hadn't even considered. So that's kind of the benefit of the RFP process. The kind of the downside is that's a heavy lift for a developer. That takes a lot of time and effort, and time is money. So you might limit yourself in the number of responses you get if you go that route. An RFQ process is a little bit more of a streamlined process. They're essentially the same, but an RFQ process, you just be reaching out, asking for qualifications. So developers would just respond to you with, here's our experience, here's what we do, here's projects we've done before, here's our financials. You basically vet the developer that they are capable, they have experience, they're financially solvent and capable to do a project like that. And then you just pick the developer that you're comfortable with, and then you work out the details later. Again, that's an easier process for the developer to respond to. But again, then under that scenario, you'd probably want to have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for to do on that site. You wouldn't necessarily want to go ahead and hire a developer and then have no idea what you want from him or her at that point. So those are kind of the positives and the negatives. Again, take what I say with a grain of salt. As a consultant, it's always easier for us to respond to the RFQ process as opposed to the RFP. But again, under that scenario, you don't get to look at all the pretty pictures and the concepts and those types of things. So that's ultimately the goal. I have already started putting together, just pulling the general research and demographic data and stuff that you'll need when we ultimately get to that RFP, RFQ process. But again, the first step, and we really can't get much further until we sit down with the Altenheim people and find out if they're, what they're willing to do with regards to those covenants, because that's really going to drive everything going forward. We really need to know, are we limited to the covenants as they are right now, or is there some wiggle room in there? If there's some wiggle room in there, what do you have to give back as far as, a potential giving back a piece of property for a buffer to any potential higher density. So we need, that stuff all has to be worked out first. So again, we really need to know the exact piece of property that we're going to end up with and what is ultimately going to be allowed on that. So hopefully we can get that scheduled up relatively soon. I think we were close to having one and it didn't quite happen, but we're trying to get that taken care of as soon as possible. Again, as Rachel said, as we're going through this process, I'm kind of getting my feet wet, and this is kind of one of the first things I'm diving into. So I'll be coming back periodically just to kind of give you guys an update on how everything is going. But I just wanted to come here tonight and just let you know we're on this now. This is kind of one of the first things that I'm digging into, and yeah, that's kind of what I have. Did I miss anything?
Questions for Pete? Commissioner Maxim.
This is probably less for you, Pete, than it might be for the village administrator or the mayor. When is the last time that anyone from the village has met with the Altenheim board? And then what did you guys talk about?
So I have not formally met with the board in its entirety. I have met with members of the board. The last time that I spoke with members of the board was one in coordination for this meeting. Summer schedules, vacations, and all of that is kind of what's been the holdup with getting the meeting with their representatives and our representatives to talk about the buffer, and the sellback of the property that they are interested in. So that's the last time I spoke with them as far as that's concerned.
That was probably in May.
Just a quick question or perhaps an observation, a note. In the conversation we had about the buffer and the covenants at our last sort of whole group discussion about the Altenheim, in my notes I had that, or it was advised, can't remember exactly where it came from, maybe I don't know, it was that it would be actually maybe anyway, I won't go into it, but it was in part of our discussion, it came up that perhaps considering the covenant and was something that would have to be when we had a proposal and everybody would be sitting at the table with an actual proposal in mind. I don't know. It's in the recording. So it wasn't something that could be considered by the Altenheim in an abstract sense.
Correct.
So
You know,
I'm concerned that we're building in like a lot of barriers where we could try and find ways to move forward.
yeah. So one of the things that that Pete mentioned was the covenants, and I will say the Altenheim has expressed that they would be open to during any talks with the buyback of the buffer that the additional land that they're looking for to purchase back from us.
Okay.
That is one thing that we can discuss with them is the kind of a renegotiation of the covenants. You know, they have expressed that. For instance, for us to go in and say, well, we'd like to make this R3, they're likely going to want more information than just it being R3, because R3 has a couple different, you know, it has multiple variations of what something in an R3 would look like. So yes, there's going to be kind of going back to, you know, needing some type of consensus from council as to what might go there. Will at least give us some limitations to what perhaps an R3 development might look like to be incorporated into, you know, a potential renegotiation of the covenants. But those are all things that would need to be worked out.
Okay, and that makes sense to me. So if there's any particular instruction and guidance and timeline you'd like us to work on for that, that would be very helpful. Because I know we're all interested, or at least I can speak for myself. I'm interested in helping you all move this forward.
I think once we are able to formally sit down all in a room, I mean, these conversations that we've had so far have been, you know, myself, Director Glinke, one-on-one or one-on-two with members of the board. You know, and that's been probably over the last year that we've had those conversations. And I think the mayor and I have met, you know, between us and one or two members of the board. And so I think once we get everybody in the room and we start having these formal conversations and, you know, we can present ideas, the village staff will come back to the village council with, you know, kind of what's being talked about. They will go back to their entire board and talk about what's being talked about. And so hopefully we'll be able to get some better answers that paint a better picture.
Excellent.
Through that route.
Great.
Commissioner Maxim.
So would it make sense perhaps to sort of simultaneously, you know, have you guys meeting with the board, but then we're also working on coming to having discussions about what we want to see so that there's two things happening at once. Like, I don't know if, you know, the conversations with the Altenheim board are going to be enough without also some conversations happening at the same time with the council to figure out, you know, what we're trying to do. So you were sort of talking about, you know, getting the meeting with the board scheduled, but I'm thinking maybe something a little more simultaneous
That could happen.
might be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't have to, one doesn't have to, there's not like a sequential order in which it needs to happen. That certainly if that's something that the council wants to do, those conversations can take place simultaneously while, you know, staff is working with the Altenheim to move things forward.
Commissioner Vogt.
Yeah, so as we have talked about this in the past, where I think it's smart to work with the Altenheim now to identify that buffer and work out that deal and that arrangement, and simultaneously we can be doing other work. My suggestion would be we should really be exploring, I think, more of like a market feasibility or land feasibility study. And it will help better inform subsequent RFP or RFQ. We keep getting caught in this kind of like chicken or egg scenario with well, the sales covenant won't allow this, so let's not even talk about it. But they're open to something if it's a good idea, but we're not going to talk about it because the sales covenant doesn't let us talk about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would be in the best interest of the village to actually look at that land, evaluate its highest and best uses with some of our ideas that maybe step outside of the lines of, you know, what is allowed under the sales covenant, because we might be rewriting it, or they might be open to a really good idea. Because I don't want to see us selling the taxpayers short. And I think while we're exploring, you know, the feasibility of that land, we're also selling ourselves short if we're not expanding what we're looking at. Because the Altenheim, the community center, the CTA parking lot, some land we have on Des Plaines, all of that is very close to each other. And all of that could be sort of connected in some ways that we aren't really thinking about yet. We know that the Prairie Path is extending. We know that I believe the mayor had mentioned that CTA was reevaluating some of their property. So I think we are selling ourselves short if we're not looking at the bigger picture and sort of that Des Plaines corridor and the Altenheim. And that might lead us to something that maybe has a little less housing at the Altenheim and more public green space, because maybe there's a bit of land on Des Plaines that can take a little bit higher density. And I'm just spitballing things, but I feel like to rush an RFP or an RFQ without any real ideas, we know that people want green space. We know that we need some housing. We know that we'd like to generate some revenue. That's it. I think with the feasibility study or something similar, could really start to sort of hone that idea and inform an RFP moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Vogt.
Just add, I don't think we're in danger of rushing the RFP process. So some of these hurdles are pretty large that we need to overcome. And just to touch base real quick on the other comments, I think you both kind of hit the nail right on the head. Clearly, the Altenheim is, you know, the more they know about what could potentially go there, they're going to want to see as much as possible. Clearly, I totally understand that. But it's really difficult to come up with a concept plan if we don't know what our constraints are. So we're kind of in a chicken and an egg thing. So that's kind of why we're in this situation. And then to touch on what you just said, that, yeah, it would definitely, to help that specific scenario, if we can get some just general constraints or guidelines of, you know, what we're trying to get from them, that would certainly absolutely be helpful as far as any negotiations with them.
I do think ultimately, though, it is up to the village and serving the community's interests.
Absolutely.
So I feel like if we're workshopping some ideas and we find something that we all like, that maybe isn't quite within those constraints, we could say, how do you feel about this idea? Should we pursue it further? You know, it's not like we have to have a solid plan and say, do you like this or don't you like this? But we're just getting stuck on getting these, you know, lists of wants and needs for this property together to move forward. And they're not going to be,
yeah, I mean,
they're not going to be doing that work. We are. So,
right. I mean, it's your property, you own it. So under the ideal scenario, you know, you would have a concept that you want to see on that site. You know, short of that, which we don't seem to have.
right. But with a feasibility study, we could
yeah.
maybe say these three are the three that we're most excited about.
Yeah.
And then that also could be pulling in these additional properties and seeing, like, I can't think of how those might all tie together, but I know that they are all transit oriented, and they're all very close together, and they're by a lot of great amenities. So I personally would like to see something along those lines happening while we're working to figure out the sale back buffer with the Altenheim.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Indeed.
Commissioner Maxim.
I definitely would like to see the possibilities for development of the other parcels that you're talking about. But I also don't want us to forget that we've done a lot of work already on this. You know, you and I were part of the Altenheim committee, which actually had a sitting member of the Altenheim board on it. And we did a lot of many public meetings, lots of work, you know, meetings out at the Altenheim to tour the property. There was a lot of stuff done with recommendations from that committee that did come out of it. And there was a committee of residents who really put in, and, you know, all our committees have really intelligent, wonderful residents on them. This particular committee had some very talented people who know a lot about, you know, transit and know a lot about development and stuff like that. There were business people. It was a really great committee. So I don't want to see that work and those recommendations just discarded. I would really like that to be part of the conversation, because I feel like we've done a lot of work already, and I don't want to just kind of throw that all away and say, well, let's start from scratch and start talking about this all over again, because then, you know, we've wasted time and people's efforts, and I don't think we need to start from the beginning all over again. I think we're already at a place where we can take what we've done and then move forward with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Maxim. All right, so let me just say that things are a little bit different now. You know, they've just passed the transit bill. I talk a lot about that. But NETA is going to have a development authority component to it. And NETA is actually going to have bonding authority. So as we see how this new entity develops and how it impacts transit-related developments throughout Cook County, it could create additional opportunities, additional interest. And so, yes, we have spent time, but it's, you know, a little bit, the marketplace is changing, I guess is what I would say. So let's, you know, you made some good points. We certainly do need to talk to the Altenheim. We need to do our work. And commissioners, hopefully you all will be talking to each other and exchanging ideas in the interim so that we can move towards you know, a common vision, so to speak. Director Glinke, did you want to say something?
Just real briefly, two things. I have met with the full Altenheim board on 2 occasions. It was probably north of 2.5 years ago, where the subject of going to R3 was first broached. They seemed reasonable. They said they would look at it. But, you know, as I look back over the last 5 years, we've really had sort of a laser focus on multifamily. And I think that we've never given due consideration to developing within the confines of the restrictive covenants, because it avoids a lot of headaches. Rachel and I are in discussions with another developer who's looking at potentially leasing parking spaces in the underutilized north lot at the CTA. And that brings into focus the single biggest limitation on development of that property, and that is access and egress. And until somebody solves that problem, you're really going to be limited to intensity of use, i.e. The number of units we put there. So if we do consider or, you know, bring up for discussion going with R1 or R2, it's a lower intensity of use. Yes, we will get less per fewer dollars per square foot, but it eliminates any back and forth with the Altenheim. It eliminates some of the concerns that have, on the record, been expressed by residents at the Grove. Getting out of that place is a nightmare. I fully expect anybody to, you know, who's going to do this to look for some type of impact fees to remove the median planters on a little bit further east of there at Famous Liquors to provide some traffic relief. Because right now at peak, it backs up to about the middle of Concordia Cemetery. And we know daily how little respect people have for leaving these intersections open just by simply going to the intersection of Wilcox and Des Plaines, where on a daily basis, I have to wait for the light to change because somebody's blocking the intersection. The fire department just absolutely loves to pull out and lay on that air horn when cars are blocking the, and that goes back decades. So there's going to be some limitation. There's going to be a higher intensity of vehicle traffic. So the point is, you know, we need to, as we're imagining, we need to reimagine outside of R3. I think that's a, you know, probably a wise consideration. And recall that 2 years ago, I did present the council with a land use proposal that was voted down as too expensive. I asked it was Tim Brangle and Associates, and that's exactly what he specializes in. He's an urban planner and an architect. He is the one who reimagined the medical center campus when Cook County Hospital relocated to its current location. And that arguably has been a very successful repurposing of that land. I'm certainly happy to reach out to Mr. Brangle and at least get a discussion between him and Pete and myself and Rachel, if that's the council's will. But if I recall correctly, we had an opportunity after I asked him to resubmit in cafeteria form. You know, we could use them for the whole thing, which was $100,000, or which I believe did include crafting an RFP, which Pete's gonna handle that. And just as a little bit of context, the 7/10 of an acre at Ashland and Madison, before they even went to entitlement, they were over $100,000 in investment. And that includes architectural renderings, preliminary engineering, traffic study, photometric study. So, you know, for an RFP, you're going to have fewer respondents because of the expense of putting together all of those exhibits. It's always been my belief that an RFQ allows us to partner with somebody so that we get the village's vision, the developer's vision, bring the two together to put together a package that A, makes it through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and B, passes hopefully unanimously with the elected officials.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The RFQ is I think it's the better way to go, but again, and yeah, as Steve said, you know, I don't know what your feelings are on just sticking in the covenants, but that obviously that's the easiest path and the straightest path forward. If that's something that you want to consider, but.
Any further questions for Pete? All right, Pete, thank you for this starting point. We have a lot of work to do.
Thanks for your time. And like Rachel said, I imagine I'll be coming back periodically just to keep you guys updated on what's going on. Thanks for your time.
All right, Commissioners, moving along under new business, next item is an ordinance waiving the bid and authorizing the acceptance and execution of a proposal by and between Lexipol LLC and the Village Fire Department. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxham. Is there a second? Been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion? Okay, there's no discussion. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragovan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt, Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
Okay, this is ordinance O25-26.
Commissioners, next item is an ordinance waiving the bid and authorizing the acceptance and execution of a proposal with Hygineering, Inc. in the village for indoor air quality testing. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxham. Is there a second? Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion? All right, there's no discussion. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Maxim,
Aye.
Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
This is ordinance O26-26.
Commissioners, next item is a resolution approving invoice number 3 for the Jackson Boulevard resurfacing project, and this is to Burke Engineering. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Mellon Ragoven. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Vogt. Discussion? There's no discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim. Aye. Commissioner Nero. Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
This is Resolution R76-26.
All right, Commissioners, next item is a resolution to approve and authorize the execution of a software service renewal agreement. And this is with Cloud Permit, Inc. It's a 3-year agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Maxham. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Mellon Ragoven. Discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
This is Resolution R77-26.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioners, next item is a resolution to approve and authorize the execution of a professional engineering services proposal for Phase 2 Design Engineering Services with Burke Engineering. And this is for Elgin Avenue, Adams Street, and Harlem Avenue Water Main and Resurfacing Project. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Mellon Ragoven. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Vogt. Discussion? Okay, there's no discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye.
This is Resolution R78-26.
All right, Commissioners, next item is a measure. There's a party seeking approval for a liquor license request. Famous Liquors at 7714 Madison is selling. The new owners would like to continue the business. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Maxham. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Commissioner Nero. Discussion.
Are the new owners here? Good. Welcome.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, and Commissioners, the final item under new business for this evening is a solicitation request from the Knights of Columbus. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Mellon Ragoven. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh.
Or,
You all can tie for the second, right?
Yeah,
You can
right.
you can have a joint second. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I actually have a request. Could we contact the Knights of Columbus because they've requested soliciting at Jackson and Circle? And that is not an ideal location.
It's time.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Nero. As someone who has been receiving a lot of feedback about construction, Jackson and Circle is not an ideal location. If we can find them a safe space, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Noted. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Maxim, Commissioner Nero, Commissioner Mellon Ragoven,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye. All right, Commissioners, that concludes our new business for this evening. We're at administrative report.
So I'm going to continue a little bit on the construction topic real fast, just to give a couple updates on the infrastructure work that's going on in the village. So speaking of Jackson Boulevard, the water main work is complete. And so now you'll see A-Lamp will be out there right now. They're working on spot curb and ADA renovations at the moment. And so once that is done, then they're moving on to the, they're going to grind the surface. They'll do a resurfacing. And then part of this project also has, I can't think of the name at the moment, but it'll help with keeping people in the lanes. I'm blanking on the name of them at the moment, but similar to what Jackson Boulevard has on the turn in Oak Park to keep people within the lanes on the just east of Harlem. Intermittently, you will see them along Jackson Boulevard. Randolph, and there's two projects right now. One is along Randolph. They're also doing work on ADA and curb work, and then Displains. They're doing the same on Displains. They're going to be doing a grind and resurface from Randolph to Madison Street. Those are both IDOT projects, and so while the village was consulted on them, those are being entirely run by IDOT, and so those projects are taking place now and will continue on for the next couple weeks. There is a green alley project going on. This is in part funded by an MWRD partnership that's happening on the 800 block of Hannah and Thomas. And then I know that there's been some talk about some work on the 800 block of Hannah with regards to lead services. I just want to give a quick explanation of that. So that was not initially on our list of projects to do this year. We did the stage 3 lead services project. Sometimes what happens is we go out and we find out that there are homes that already had their lead services completed that we thought we were going to be replacing. And so with those particular projects, because we received money from IEPA for those, there's money left over, and we certainly don't want to see that go to waste. And so what we do is we look at the list and see where we can fit the number of lead services that we anticipate with the amount of money that we have left over for the project. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing all the money that, you know, we've been granted. So that project, 800 block of Hannah, what was picked, unfortunately, it all transpired at the same time that the alley work also happened. And so, you know, we're working with residents. We know that it is a pain parking wise, and that there have been some challenges per se on that. But I do want to stress, especially for those residents who are getting the lead services taken care of, that's a $12,000 to $15,000 project that is being paid for through this grant. And that that particular block was not slated to have that work happen for several years. So I can certainly understand the frustration those residents have had on the block. And I'm asking and just for some patience for a little while longer. You will have new lead services, so you'll have, you know, safe drinking water. You'll also have a nice green alley at the end of this. Hopefully we've worked out the kinks. We meet weekly with Burke Engineering, and so we've relayed to them that you know, although we've communicated that the project was happening, you know, clearly there are residents who didn't get the message, whether the flyer blew off the alley. And so we have stepped up those efforts as far as communication with them goes. So hopefully everybody now knows what's going on with that. And then lastly, I'm sorry, there's going to be one more project that you're going to see happening. It should not affect traffic in Forest Park, but Director Stella and I met with IDOT. They're going to be putting some protective shield reinforcements under the Circle Avenue Bridge and under the Harlem Avenue Bridge. So traffic on Harlem and Circle will not be affected. However, there will be some intermittent night closures of the Harlem Avenue ramps on and off, just because they have to do the work on 290 from underneath. So that work is going to be taking place. So if anybody has questions about that, that's another IDOT project. And then lastly, since this takes place before our next meeting, the first day of school for District 91 is August 18th. So I just want to remind people that you're going to start seeing school children back on the streets again. Please be careful when you're driving, especially on Jackson, where we won't have that project tied up in time for August 18th. So there's still going to be some roadway construction there, and just please, please, please pay attention to kids as they're going to school throughout all of Forest Park, but particularly around Garfield as school heads back on August 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Entler. Okay, we're at commissioner reports. Commissioner Maxim,
I do not have a report tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Nero,
Yeah, appreciate the note on the back to school safety. Rachel, that was nice. We had two real good presentations today. One on the TIF district by Ryan LLC, which was lots to think about. My thought on that is just that's going to ignite some development on the north part of town that I think is probably long overdue. And I think it's something that we should really look at it from a positive standpoint from my position. And then the Altenheim, I mean, holy moly, I think 7 years ish doing this. We've been talking about the Altenheim and probably years before that. So having some meaningful discussion around that. I appreciate Tesca, Pete coming out, having kind of a pragmatic approach. I don't think any one approach is wrong or better. I think there's, whether you approach the Altenheim and figure out what we can negotiate with them from an R1, R2, R3, or whether we just kind of come up with an idea and try to sell them on that idea to move the needle. I don't think any of them are bad. I think what's important and an idea for all of us to maybe consider is to use Pete as kind of the sounding board. I heard some discussion here about what do we want to do? And so an idea might be to communicate, if you haven't already, with Tesca. Tell them what your thoughts are and ideas. It's very difficult for us all to get together. We know that, or individually, or one at a time, or two together, whatever the story is. But a simple phone call to Pete saying, hey, here was my vision. Here's what I was thinking about. Here's what we can maybe do over there. And then he could become the sounding board, the repository, so to speak, for some of those ideas. And so he's kind of got a path forward, at least from our perspective of what we would like to do there. And that's the end of my report. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Commissioner Nero. Commissioner Melvin McGovern.
Thank you. To pick up on just a few things that Administrator Entler said about the traffic going on and the construction, I just wanted to highlight the work that our vendors and our Public Works team is doing to respond to resident concerns. And I also have been talking to a lot of residents about their questions, and Village Hall has been fielding a lot of questions. And thank you all for village staff, Public Works staff, for helping residents navigate the questions about construction. It is hard to deal with all these projects happening, but it is important. It's a great accomplishment when we get these funds, and to be able to keep our infrastructure running well and to make these improvements. And we really appreciate residents being able to work with us. And it really is a partnership that we value, and we appreciate village staff helping our residents understand these processes. So want to encourage village residents to call Village Hall with any questions that you have ongoing. And I want to thank everyone who shared their views today during public comments. I really appreciated hearing from residents today. And I want to note that I have been hearing from residents pretty consistently about the video that was online regarding the ICE officer who interacted with our police department in Village Hall. I personally was very concerned about this incident. I reflected on it and, have been listening a lot to residents in our community. And I raised questions with our village administrator, mayor, and had talked to emailed our police department about the procedures we have in place for things like this when they happen. Given that ICE has, really increased their activity in our area and in our communities. And again, this is something I've been hearing concerns about from residents, that they're worried and concerned and feeling unsafe in general about the increased presence of ICE, and wondering what this means about their ability to visit Village Hall. I believe very strongly that Village Hall needs to be a welcoming place for everyone seeking services in Forest Park. I want to make sure that no one hesitates to come in and seek village services, request a garage sale permit, ask a question at the counter, pay for a parking ticket, or, wondering if they'll be safe. I believe everyone who works in Village Hall cares about our village and its residents. However, this occurrence has created uncertainty and fear, and we need to work together to address it. And I commit to working with my colleagues and village staff to be a part of the process. And I welcome any residents who would like to share their thoughts with me to continue to do so as we move forward to address the concerns that have been raised, and to move forward to address the trust issues that have been brought to my attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mellon Rogovan. Commissioner Vogt.
Thank you. What Michelle said, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and for writing in to share your public comments about that incident. I know a lot of people have reached out to me and they are feeling a little shook. And I just want to make sure that we are doing, and I've spoke with the mayor and Administrator Entler, that we're doing everything we can to restore folks' trust and to feel safe in our community. So I hear you and I thank you for coming out. On a little bit lighter note, the snowplow naming contest is off to a great start. We've got over 20 suggestions already. This portion of the contest is open until September 4th. Folks will be able to vote for their favorites beginning September 21st after Public Works staff has narrowed the list down to their 10 favorites. So please find the link on the village's website, in the newsletter, and social media accounts. You have to submit the names through the link. You can't just say them on Facebook. And you're letting people steal your ideas if you do it that way. So please submit your names and we'll keep you posted on how that's going. And then the rec board meeting is this Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll be discussing the upcoming fall cleanup, which is scheduled for September 12th. And we will be sharing more information about that and a registration link soon. And then I want to wish Joel a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Commissioner Vogt. All right, commissioners, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just talk about the encounter with ICE 2 Thursdays ago. What happened obviously was troubling to the village, and that's why we see so many people here tonight. We've certainly heard the comments, quite a few emails. Last week, Administrator Entler and I met with the chief and with the deputy chief to talk about, exactly what happened. And I made our expectations clear to police leadership. It kind of started with the Trust Act. They emphasized that, Forest Park complied with the Trust Act. No information was shared. What essentially was an instance where law enforcement is deferential to other law enforcement. but we discussed, what was actually going on in terms of the legality of monitoring law enforcement. It is legal in this state. So we're going to have to see some better training for village employees, not only with police officers, but also civilian employees of the village. We've spoken with at least one union about our expectations and incorporating new training standards and expectations, into bargaining agreements. We expect our employees to be truthful, especially when they're wearing the Forest Park logo, on their garments. And as a council, we've gone out of our way, I believe, to give the police the tools that they need to be successful, things like cameras, modern equipment. At the same time, we just expect their behavior to be cognizant of community standards and community sentiments. So having said that, let's continue to support our first responders. We live in a tough neighborhood. We need to continue to provide them with the tools to be successful. But at the same time, commenting specifically on ICE, this is an agency that's been in Forest Park before. They were here last October, Concordia Cemetery. Many of you probably remember. And throughout different parts of the country, ICE has had some really aggressive enforcement. Those tactics have resulted in deaths. And unfortunately, from the perspective of municipal leadership, you have a federal agency that doesn't even allow local governments, state and local, to investigate deaths. And so for that reason, it's really troubling to think that this community is perceived as really cooperating, right? Cooperation is a two-way street. We expect law enforcement to be constitutional above all. We all took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois. Our police take that same oath. Our firefighters take that same oath. And we expect nothing less. So having said that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you, Commissioner Nero. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Maxim. Commissioner Nero. Commissioner Mellon Rigoven.
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Mayor Hoskins.
Aye, we stand adjourned.